Welcome to Momentum, a podcast breaking down the issues facing women's sports, brought to you by Mecca Empower. I'm Kat Sasso, and each week I will be joined by experts and athletes as we dive deep into the world of women's sports and the trials and triumphs that exist within them. This week I am thrilled to be joined by Afghan women's team captain and goalkeeper Fatima Yousufi and former Socceroo and human rights activist Craig Foster. But before we dive into Fatima's story, I'd better go get ready. The story of the Afghan women's national football team is not an easy one to tell. For years, they were forced to play in secret under Taliban rule. They faced a brief 14 years of normality where the foundations of Afghan women's football began to flourish, with the support it rightfully deserved. Fatima was one of the young women growing up in this system who was able to see a future where football was an option. But everything changed in August 2021 when the Taliban took control of Afghanistan once again. Faced with new dangers, the Afghan women's team was forced to flee for their lives. That's where Australian football icon and human rights activist Craig Foster comes in. After hearing their story, Craig became a tireless advocate, helping coordinate their escape and their relocation to safety. With his efforts and the support of many others, these incredible women, including Fatima, were granted asylum and eventually found refuge in Australia, where they could rebuild their lives and their love for football. Today, the Afghan women's team is in a new chapter, rebuilding from the ground up, training in exile and keeping the dream alive despite the challenges. But their journey is far from over. Their story is a reminder of how sport transcends borders and can be a lifeline in the fight for justice and equality. My first question is for you, Fatima. What does football mean to you?
So I think I should go back to Afghanistan first. So when I was in Afghanistan, football was a dream for me, like a symbol of power for me, to be honest. Because for the first time when I started, when I played for the first time with the girls at school, I felt powerful. I felt like I can do something just as boys can do in Afghanistan, because it's a sport like in Afghanistan, all the sports for the women is a barrier, and not everyone can start or play sports easily, as I'm seeing right now in Australia, like women and girls having the opportunity to play easily. But in Afghanistan on that time, it was something unbelievable that I did. So when I started, I had to cover it like from my parents first, and then especially my dad, like, you know, the ideology of the males, especially in Afghanistan, is so different, and thinking about women should just go after the home, kitchen, like cleaning. And it's not about the sport, it's not about education for the women. So basically it was hard on that time. But when I was playing, so on that time, the meaning was about the power, the meaning was about my, freedom. And then after we came to Australia, so I can say after the time that Taliban took over the country, from that moment on, this sports meant something bigger than that. Like, it's a second chance for me, to be honest, to be alive, to start all over again and to start powerful. So, yeah.
When you found out that the Taliban had regained control in Afghanistan, you were getting ready for training. Can you tell me a little bit about what that moment was like for you?
It was hard because we were so happy to go for the Asian qualifiers games on that time to get ready for the FIFA World Cup, I remember. And during that time, I was 19 years old, and I was so much excited, so much motivated to just, represent my country like in a very big stage in the world, and watching other national teams as well. So Taliban, they were taking over some provinces at first, and myself, like my imagination, I was thinking about Afghanistan like a big country, like, it's not easy for a group of people to come and take over a country with militaries and everything that I was thinking on that time. But they did, actually. They took first some provinces, and day by day it was increasing to several provinces. And then we were living in capital, like our team was based in capital in Kabul. So we were so hopeful, to be honest. On that time, everybody of the team, like everybody was thinking we will be able to play. We will manage to go to those games. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. I remember that was the day we were out of the training because of the situation that Taliban was taking over the provinces. So basically our coach was trying to tell us it's very dangerous to you guys to come and join the training from now on. So maybe for a while we should have a break. So we were on a break, but we were also busy with our club training. So we wanted to, stay active. So we were going to the futsal grounds and having our training with the clubs. And I remember that day was the time that Taliban took over the Kabul. It was the day that we had a training, our club. And there was one of my teammates was coming after me, like we were always going together, so we were neighbors too. And she was knocking the door at first, just several knocks, and then I was thinking, like, I was just lacing up my shoes and trying to get out of house for the training. And then suddenly my phone was ringing a lot of text messages. Like, I really ignored that, to be honest, because I was like in a hurry. I was thinking like maybe it's because late and everybody's calling, like, where are you? And then my teammate as well, she was knocking the door fast on that time. It was very strange. And then I went to her and then I opened the door and she was like, did you see the messages? Did you check your phone? Like, what's happening? The Taliban is here. We should go back home. It's the training is canceled and everything. So that was the day that I figured out it's happening. That was the day I believed my eyes, to be honest, with watching the videos from the group chat that we had from our football club, and the girls were sharing. Some of the girls were outside already, and they took videos from Taliban when they arrived and took over the city, and with the cars and a group of them, and just having the guns in their hands, and people were just shattered everywhere, and they were closing the shops, closing everything, just like us. I just went back home, and then everybody, like, all the girls went there back home, and so that was the day that I realized it's over.
And you guys were advised to burn any evidence of your football careers, but you instead decided to bury it. Why?
It was a very hard decision. You have your jerseys, for example, you have your football equipments and everything. Like, I achieved those things very hard. Like, I achieved those memorable things from my football journey in a very hard way. Like, it wasn't like easy to just go and buy them or maybe receive that from the national team. So it was an honor for me, like, to have awards, to have I have several awards as well, like from goalkeeping and some jerseys, so from the national team. But the thing was, there was our names on it, and our identity was out there in Federation and Taliban when they took over. So we were in a great danger because of the safety of ourselves and safety of the family. We had to just somehow to cover ourselves and to be hidden for a while, maybe, because nothing was clear. We didn't know, like, we will be alive or not, because there was a lot of news, like, every day. I remember I was in the phone, like, 24 hours. I was with my phone and watching, what can I do? Like, how can I, help myself? How can I help my teammates? How can I help my family? Because it was a very serious moment, because I couldn't find anything. Like, I can say stressed as well, but I couldn't show my stressed face to my teammates and being like positive. Girls, it's easy. Like, they can't take over a country and stuff. Again, even with watching them coming off and, taking over the Kabul as well. But again, like, I don't know, there was some hopes in my head, but it was day by day, it was getting dark. So there was a day, suddenly Khalida Popa, the former captain of the team and co-founder of the national team. So she I think, left Afghanistan on 2011, and she was based in Denmark. And some of the girls know her, and they were being in touch with her and asking her for help. So she was the one who were the main reason for us to be safe today, I can say. And so she was added to the group chat, and then she was telling us we should keep ourselves safe, our families, and we need to delete our social medias account. We need to, do whatever we can do, like deleting all the maybe reports and our interviews out there. So it was impossible really in a short time to do all those things together. But we should have done the first thing, because the Taliban started to search up the houses, and that was the very fearful moment, because we needed to do something about our jersey. But I remember it was too hard for me, to just, we should have destroyed our achievement. That was the meaning of that. And then I couldn't do that. I couldn't burn it, because that was the thing, that was the instruction to the group, for all the girls from the national team, to just burn it down, or maybe do something about it to disappear, because you will be in great danger if they're going to find it, because they started the search up, and day by day they were getting close to our houses. So I just thinking about what else can I do. So I thought about burying them, and I did. It was a very hard moment and unbelievable. I think I'll never forget that moment.
Of course, I think it's a really difficult thing to come to terms with, the fact that you have to erase your entire identity to keep yourself and your family safe. Craig, before we get into the actual story of how you were a part of the Afghan women's story, can you talk to me about how you've come from your football career and gotten into human rights activism?
Yeah, great. Look, it's good to be here, and always good to see Fatima. She's absolutely amazing, and listening to her speak, it's incredible to think that hundreds of millions of people play football around the world, and we take that right and that opportunity for granted. And those of us who have opportunities to play for our national teams, we take immense pride from that. We carry that in our heart and throughout our whole lives, but it never puts our life at risk. And it's good, for Fatima to be telling her story as many times as possible, because the whole world of football, including all the girls and women that play all around the world, and the males who need to be allies in this respect, need to understand the risk that these incredible women were put at for that reason. For those of us in the game who are, I think, naturally human rights advocates, I think that they go hand in hand, simply because, we are the multicultural game. We're the biggest sport in the world. 211 countries play. When we play for our national teams, we stand with another group of players that we're going to compete against. But the idea is that we shake hands and that we're equal. And then when we get off the field, I think a lot of us take that to heart, and we say, well, how can we compete on the field as equals? And then when we're off the field, A, see anyone as less worthy, but B, and perhaps more importantly, when those people are demonised or victimised or attacked, how can we then be quiet? So people in the multicultural game of football, both in Australia and all around the world, I think we are the most natural human rights advocates because our dressing rooms and our teams are full of cultures, certainly in Australia, which is a wonderful multicultural place. We sit in the dressing room with people with all cultures, and we love our teammates. We work hard to win or lose or draw together. And once we get outside of the dressing room, we should also be together, right? And so then when we see those types of communities being treated differently to ourselves, which happens both in Australia and around the world, then I think we have a responsibility that the game has given us, particularly when we play for our country, to then say, well, hang on, and push back and say, that's not right. Like, I played with that person, or I played with that person's community, or I played with a person of that faith, for example. And you're saying these things about them now, well, we're not going to stand for that, because we are the game of diversity. We are the world game, and therefore we're going to draw a line and say no.
And you've been so vocal about so many different things going on in the world at the moment, but I want to talk to you about your role that you played in securing the safe passage of Fatima and her teammates coming to Australia. What was that experience like? How did you get involved? Where did you find out about their story?
Well, it's a long story, but, the most important point, firstly, is that these people are the heroines of their own story, right? And everyone else, we're just around the periphery, just doing what it is that we could, and we all have different skills and contacts and influence. Essentially, in a nutshell, I think Khalida was the former captain, and just an amazing advocate and Afghan woman, very strong, courageous. She stood immediately with the team and started advising them of what to do, but she also had some contacts in global football with FIFPro in particular, which is our Global Players Union, who haven't always done a great job in this respect. And even their support for this team over a period of time, has been, I think, intermittent. But she got in touch with them, and there's another really brilliant woman there, a lawyer by the name of Kat Craig. Anyway, turns out that they got in touch with a couple of sports or lawyers here, human rights lawyers in Australia, and one by the name of Alison Battinson. So I'm already talking about 3 brilliant women. So this was driven by, incredible women. And what happened is I knew them because of previous campaigns. They obviously knew I was in football and that I we had a few years ago secured the safety of another football refugee by the name of Hakim Al Arabi. So they got in touch, Alison got in touch, said, listen, this group needs help. We need your help with the Australian government. We need to try and get them here. And I said, yeah, let's do it straight away. So I reached out and kind of put a team together straight away we also were securing the safety of 2 of the Paralympic athletes, Afghans. They ended up settling elsewhere in France, but it was the Australian government and our team of Aussies who actually secured their freedom. And so I spoke to one of our most legendary Paralympians ever, and got him involved with the government immediately. I called one of our independent MPs here by the name of Zali Steggall. She is a Winter Olympian medalist, and so a legendary athlete, but also in government. And I got in touch with our foreign minister, an immigration minister, immediately. And what we did is we said, okay, we need to get this team here. There was then, after a couple of days, a global meeting with FIFPro and others, including the Swiss government, the US government, the German government, many government officials and sports and human rights. And only within 48 hours or so, they asked the question on that. And we attended that meeting online, and they said, this team needs safety. Who is it that can help them? And the little Aussies were the only ones that put our hand up. And we just said, listen, we're already speaking to the federal government. We're speaking to the immigration minister. We believe it's going to happen very quickly and that we can secure the visas for these amazing women. And thankfully, we were able to do so.
And Fatima, your family are now thankfully in Australia with you, but you had to leave them behind for your safety and for their safety when you left. How hard was that for you at that time?
That was so hard. For the first time, you don't know what's happening to you, what's waiting for you. I don't know anything about Australia, to be honest, as I'm always sharing with people. The only thing that I know about Australia was the Opera House, and that was because I was watching the animations and cartoons. So I was in animation Nemo.
Nemo.
Yeah.
P. Sherman.
So the Nemo and I don't know, Dory.
Yeah. What's the address? I think it's P. Sherman 8 Wallaby Way, Sydney, or something like that.
Was
That's
it?
the address. Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember those. The only thing that I know about Australia was that. So I was thinking, oh, okay, that's the Sydney one. But nothing else. During that time, the important thing was to be safe. The important thing to be alive, But it wasn't something to be guaranteed, even with the very great work of others, out there in other countries, as Craig just mentioned. But again, with all those efforts, we didn't know if we could make it because the airport wasn't the same airport as it was always. As I'm always referring it's it was in my head. It's always the zombie apocalypse scene in airport because all the people was rushing, all the people was trying to be safe, and everybody was scared. And such a bad moments. Maybe most of people will remember that August 2021 during the Taliban when they were there, and especially the airport situation was the worst. And we went with all our families to the gates, and it was very quite hard moments for all of us. So yeah, that's why most of the families got beaten, most of the players got beaten, got robbed, sexually, I can say, even harassed by some of people in that time. And Taliban was just beating the parents, and I didn't know. I was separated from my family during that time, I remember, and there was a time I should have gone to find a way. So I was in contact with the groups, and I was watching by the guidance of people out there. They were guiding us to go to that gate, to this gate, and I was just following up those instructions. And I remember that was the time I said, maybe not a goodbye, but maybe that was the last one. So I didn't know it was the last one. Otherwise, I would have maybe said to my mom a goodbye. But I was like shouting back to my mom and saying like, I'm going to save, everybody, girls, you and everyone. So please don't cry, because she was getting emotional at that time and telling me like, why are you going and why are you taking that responsibility? Does it have to be you? And I was like, because I know English and it's, good way to communicate with the soldiers and army around the gate. So it better be a person who can connect. So that was the time. It was very hard. I can say it was like a mission, like a just mission to be a soldier maybe. So yeah, that was the time I said I had to leave the family. And afterwards I heard about them, like they got beaten and they couldn't join me and join the girls' families, or maybe other girls who were still waiting out there. So that's why that was the time that I was like separated from the family and even couldn't say a goodbye to them. So I made my way with the girls. Everybody, like we came together. We went to the Dubai for 8 to 9 days camp, and then afterwards we come to Australia. So yeah.
Both of you have played, you still play, but you have both represented your countries. What does it mean for you to be able to represent Afghanistan, and what did it mean for you, Craig, to be able to represent Australia?
Fatty?
Me first. It will be like a very big for me, for the team, I can say. It's, like the thing that we lost right now, I can say something our team lost for a while, like almost 3 years now. We are waiting to be recognized. Not, it's also, I have to just mention this, that it's not always about our team. The goal for our team is to have the national team for Afghanistan, like women's national team of Afghanistan, because right now we don't have that. And I accept we are playing as a team, we are together, but that side of, in the other hand, if I say, like there is national team games, which we are always like 3 years we are missing, and we can't participate as a team, as a representative for our country. And in my opinion, it's a win for the Taliban. Like it's achievement for them, because they are able to, stop the women, and that was their goal. And obviously it is, like it's been 3 years that Afghan women are not able to study. Afghan women are not able to, go out there by themselves. And it's the dark days for Afghan women right now in Afghanistan. Like it's going to be 3 years now. And at the same time, I can say me and my teammates, we are all suffering too, because I remember there was, if I may share as a short story, like we had a game called Nation Games in Melbourne. There was a tournament and we were participating as Afghanistan, obviously. And on that time, I remember just one day before the game that we had, there was a bomb explosion in Afghanistan, and it was a education center. And it was very hard, really, for all my teammates and myself as well. And because we got so much emotional, it was just 1 year or maybe 1 year and a half that we were leaving Afghanistan and, starting our life in Australia. But we were witness about that bomb explosion in the social media, and it really affected us very bad. And it was like, every day it's a suffer for our team right now to be witness that Taliban is succeeding to their goal, which is stopping the women in Afghanistan and removing them from the public, removing them from the society. And it's very hard to see that. So I can say it have a very, like a big meaning for our team to see one day Afghanistan having their national team again. And they can represent equally as the men team representing. Because since the Taliban arrived, Afghanistan men team is actively playing and participating in international games, and we are witnessing, which is great. But again, at the same time, you see there is not Afghan women in any sport who are playing. it's very disappointing. And, to just be waiting for a group of terrorists to decide about your future, about your dream. Like, all of us were a dreamer before, and still we are. So hopefully to get that dream back. Yeah.
Greg?
Yeah, well, in this context, I think for us to have had the opportunity to play for our country only based on our performance and no other external factors. Like, no one looked at our ethnicity and said that, we're uncomfortable with that. No one looked at us and said that we shouldn't be playing for the country. We certainly were never at risk because we played for the country. None of us have ever had our lives actually at risk because we kicked a football. And so, when we put the two stories side by side, it's also not just someone who played for the country, but anyone watching around the world who actually plays football can get a sense of, what these amazing women actually went through. The fact that just because you want to exert your basic right to play sport, and because you're talented, you have an ambition and dream to play for your own country, that actually means that you may lose your life, is quite incredible. Secondly, what it certainly did mean was that they actually lost their families, for a very long period of time. And so you asked me before about kind of what that was like from my perspective. And one of the most difficult things watching these guys go through it was the fact that we only had a certain amount of visas, right? And when you're advocating for, people who are at extreme risk and in danger to be evacuated, that it can't be everyone. And we brought many Afghan women here and other groups and other sports and the rest, and everyone had to leave family members behind. And seeing that and seeing the impact on these women, that is something that, I just would like everyone to reflect on and think about, because most of us in the game never have to go through it. And then that begs the question, then what are we all doing about it? And the reason why it's important that Fatty continues to tell the story is because the rest of us should be speaking up about it, because we see what the Taliban are doing now. We've got gender apartheid in Afghanistan. We've got a country where women cannot and girls cannot play football. The number one sport in the world, the only country in the world that says, well, sorry, girls cannot play. Okay, you cannot aspire to be Yousufi, and you cannot aspire to be Sam Kerr. And the rest of us, if all of us step forward and said that's unacceptable, and put pressure on FIFA to change that, it would change overnight. But not enough of us have done so. And these guys have been calling for that right and calling for FIFA to allow them to do so for a couple of years now. And you would have thought that, in the beautiful game, everyone, the most high-profile players in the world, male and female, you would have thought it was a no-brainer. Everyone would just say, this is extraordinary that this can happen. This is absolutely wrong. FIFA are bound in their statutes to ensure there's no discrimination on the grounds of gender. Right? So it's impossible for a country to let men play, and the men are still playing in World Cup qualifying, and not to allow the women to play. So we need more people to say that is wrong and it cannot continue. And in fact, these guys have been running a campaign and will continue to. And we've been supporting them from Australia to say that even though they are effectively in exile and they're refugees in Australia, they must be allowed to represent their country. It's not their fault that they were driven out under extreme circumstances and at great risk to their lives. It's not their fault that this terrorist group Taliban took over and are now destroying the country. All they have is what we have, what you have, what all of us love football, and we just simply want to play. Well, they should be allowed to do so.
100%. Thank you so much for telling your story, and thank you so much for, explaining to everyone this story that, not a lot of people actually know about, which I think is really important for us to give people like you a voice and, give your story a platform and people to understand how difficult it actually is for you guys to be here and, this amazing story of your resilience. Before I let you go, I like to give our guests a chance to highlight a woman that they think is doing really amazing things in sport. So who has inspired both of you lately?
lately.
Or ever?
So for me, at the start point, like I was in Afghanistan, like never knew about soccer players, never knew about women soccer players. Like I thought it's just only the boys' games, and that's why I was when I for the first time played with the girls at school. I went to Google and I searched like who is the most popular soccer player woman, and then I found Alex Morgan first. So from that time on, I was obsessed to watch the highlights of her games, and mostly by YouTube and stuff. So yeah, for the first, I can say it was Alex Morgan. When I searched on the, you see someone like a woman, and you're just imagining yourself like one day you will be like her. I'm not a forward, I know, but a goalkeeper. So after those times, I searched for the goalkeepers, which was so many other goalkeepers from other countries. So yeah.
Craig?
Can I say these guys as a team?
Yep.
Can I say that?
Absolutely.
Not just Fatty, but the whole team. They've just been amazing. And I just like everyone to think about, when you go out this weekend and go and play football, or you go play futsal, or you go play with your school, or you go play with your club, or if you're fortunate, you go play with your country. Just to reflect on the fact that some people, that this team had their lives threatened simply because they tried to kick a ball in the same way that we do every day and take for granted. And that should never be the case anywhere in the world. And it still is. And all of us have to bind together to bring an end to that.
100%. Thank you so much, Fatima and Craig, for joining today. And thank you, everyone at home, for watching. Please make sure that you subscribe, leave us a review, and also let us know who you want to see on next week's episode of Momentum.